is make sure that's on the screen is what I think they're seeing. Oh, there we go. Something's happening. Okay. And can everybody hear us okay? All right.
Online? Can they hear us online?
And can I turn it so I can see?
Maybe.
Yeah. Does it look like it's working? Oh, there we go. Good. Okay.
Elevate this.
Forward.
Okay. Hey.
Thank you, everybody, for the patience.
Yes. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay, not that bad. Well, and we don't have an hour's worth of content anyway, but the purpose of why we're here today, we already did our intros. It's really to share progress. This is our first time coming back with everybody, kind of coming back to the group, coming to the public, and sort of sharing, unveiling the initial sort of mission, vision, values, and strategic initiatives with everyone. So that's what we're here today to do. I think you can. Yep. So we're here to get feedback, but really to just share where things are and what has come out of all of the great input. I did want to say, hopefully it's obvious, but want to make sure everyone understands this is not a Crow plan. This is not Crow's plan that we bring to you and kind of dump out. This is the culmination of all of the input and engagement from many, many people. And Jason's going to actually talk about sort of what does that look like? What kind of engagement did we receive and continue to receive? And this, of course, is one step in that engagement process coming to the public as well. So go ahead.
All right. So I want to go through some of the stats when we were first engaging in these surveys and trying to figure out what does a reasonable amount of engagement look like. The question was asked from your team, your staff. What are we hoping for? If we get the QR codes you saw at some of the parks, if we send out things online, the social media campaign that was blitzed that I saw several times, a great job the team getting it out there. We say if we can get 1,000, 1,500 surveys, like that'd be really good compared to other places we've been and to the degree of engagement that we've received other places. For the first few days, once we surpass 3,000, I think we're okay. I think the level of engagement and the feedback is going to give us a lot of data and a lot of inputs, a lot of data points out of which to tell a story that you're trying to tell us via the feedback and via the surveys, but also the engagement sessions. We were here with your parks and staff at certain points in time, parks leadership. We were at the Nature Center with partner organizations, support organizations, local units of government, the Parks Commission and Advisory Committee. We met with each of those groups individually and walked them through an engagement session about the current state, about preferred future, about what would have to get us from current state to preferred future. There's a lot of creative ways to do that, and we received a grade of not just on a survey, but a lot of great in-person feedback and engagement as well. The next slide. So from this, there were certain observations we made and we had. One that I mentioned, people care. Again, the community overwhelmingly supports the Ottawa County Parks and Recreation Commission. When I moved here 7 years ago, one of the reasons we moved just down the road because of this commission and the things we saw happening, and that was multiplied all over the place, showing people actually care about our parks and they're involved and they want to add a voice into the future direction of where we're going. The existence, there are two main keys that came out of why the Parks Commission, why the Parks and Recreation Commission exists. One was for the public good. You can define public good in a variety of ways. One was the public has an interest in this. The second reason that the commission exists was to steward the land that we have been given to steward, not just for now, but for future generations. It's very obvious. We've been given a resource that we now feel responsible for, and how do we keep that resource alive and well and growing for not just our day, but for the days to come. Those are two main reasons that the commission existed based on a lot of the feedback and sessions we had. There's also this contrast of maintain and expand. And these two things are not in tension with one another, but two main conversations was how do we maintain and keep the high quality of standards that those of us who visit the parks expect, while also expanding and not decreasing the current state at the same time. So current state, how do we make sure things are at the high quality we expect and even increase quality, while expanding and keeping the expansion in current state to that high bar, if not higher. So how do we expand without decreasing? Those are two things that also came up. And then the parks for all. How do we not just maintain the parks for the current groups who use them, but who else might we include in the parks that right now don't yet have access or not accessing the resource parks? So these are the four main themes of the sessions that when we were in person, did some creative sessions. These were some of the themes that came out of that. Go ahead. So with this in this survey, we kind of broke these down into different affinity groups. Of all the 5,000 surveys, we looked through literally every single one of them. All the surveys we looked through, all the comments we looked through. Here were some of the affinity groups that were there. The 1,100 comments in one of the sessions we did at the Nature Center. We had scrolling comments. We went through and pulled out all these comments to make sure that we are seeing them, not just in some survey, but anyone who was there kept seeing the comments of our community reflected on these screens. So again, read through every single comment. And in these comments, there were different affinity groups of the accessibility, of the park's growth, environmental stewardship, the quality of the parks, the user experience, and the community outreach and programming is what we heard and what you all said from what you heard in these groups, that if things were said in common or in tandem, these are the groups that you spoke to, and we began to affinity group around. So again, Jason mentioned in his introduction, in addition to the engagement sessions, in addition to a strategy lab, in addition to the surveys, in addition to all the comments we heard, meeting with their staff, meeting with their commission, meeting with key stakeholders across the board, we also did a community benefit survey. There was also a scientific survey and visitation data. So with all these inputs, it was very clear, as Susanna said, this was not like us coming with a plan saying, you should adopt this. It was, there is no plan until we know what you've said, what you've reported, what the data has told us, and how do we now strategically align all these inputs towards something that is actionable and now can take shape in the way that you have your fingerprints all over this, have already asked for in these surveys and sessions. The next one. So from that resulted in mission, vision, values, initiatives, and projects. Susanna is going to explain those to you.
Sure. So just high level of what these mean. I know it may be a little difficult to read on screen. There's a slide on each one of these, but just to kind of frame overall what everything means. So these build on each other, right? Mission, vision, values, really what is County Parks all about? What do you want to be about? And how do you structure all of your services and how you serve the public according to those values? And then strategic initiatives are really kind of those, some people call them pillars, there's different names for them, but it's really what are the groupings of things that you do and then ultimately projects that will support and be in alignment with your mission, vision, and values. And we've got some slides on specifically what those are. So this is the snapshot, but I'm just going to keep going because that actually, we have a slide on each one of them specifically. This diagram just kind of orients, and I don't know if there's a way to, maybe not to hide that bottom thing, but that's okay. We kind of think of it as, you know, the vision is kind of like your roof, and then the mission is the framework on the bottom, your foundation. In between are those strategic initiatives. What are the things that the Parks Department's going to be doing for the community? What projects will be supported? All in alignment. This is just kind of a way to frame it. And then if we go one further, talking about our vision and our values in action, we look at, does this project, as you think about individual projects, so individual projects come up like we want to build a new park or a new playground or a dog park, off leash, on leash, lots of opinions.
Winterized bathrooms.
Lots of, yeah, like there's all of those. We think of those as like projects, individual things that would require resources, right? But there's limited resources. So you have to prioritize those. And what will be prioritized are things that are in alignment with vision, values and strategic initiatives. And I think, everyone's kind of said it so far, but just want to repeat that it's really obvious how much in alignment the stakeholders really are, which is really interesting to us since we do this kind of for a living and go all over the place doing strategic planning. You don't always get that alignment. And it's good to have disagreement, and there's lots and lots of different diverse ideas, but people feel so passionately about really honestly similar things, that there should be accessibility, that there should be these like certain aspects. And so these strategic initiatives actually came very clearly out of the surveys, out of the sessions, out of all of the different inputs, which was really honestly refreshing for us to see, from a consulting perspective. So let's just get right to it. So what is the proposed kind of new mission for the department? So the wording that we have currently is to enhance the well-being by stewarding a connected system of natural communities and promoting outdoor experiences. So this would be sort of that top level mission for the Parks Commission. Then the proposed vision, the Ottawa County Parks and Recreation Commission will be a leader in creating a legacy of expansive, accessible, and biodiverse natural communities for all to enjoy. I think each of those words is selected very intentionally, especially the for all part. We can keep hearing that over and over and over again. The proposed values, and these hopefully these aren't surprising or even maybe new. So accessibility, providing inclusive and accessible parks, facilities, and programs. Education, curating experiences that instill an awareness of the land's history and culture and appreciation for nature. Integrity, demonstrate transparency, leadership, and commitment to care for the county's natural resources. Health and wellness, promote parks and recreational activities for the health and well-being of the community. Sustainability, engage in sustainable practices to protect and improve the environmental health of natural communities. And finally, collaboration, facilitate partnerships with community and regional organizations and leverage science-based decision-making. And none of these are, these are an and, not an or, each of these. So it's all of these things are values. They're not in conflict with each other. They're not in any particular order. One more important than the other. This should really show what is Parks Commission all about. What are the parks all about? When you're spending your resources, which are really, community resources, what are they providing for? And it's these proposed values. And then out of that, the strategic initiatives. So what are sort of these, project types going to be? They would be promoting connectivity. So aiming to connect people, expanding greenways, foster community appreciation for natural spaces. So lots and lots of projects that would support each of these. Community engagement. So educating and informing the public about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how they can get involved. Conservation. So that's acting as an environmental steward to respect, protect, and enhance our diverse natural communities. Organizational quality. Sustainably invests in our organization to ensure continued high-quality user experience for visitors and staff. And then finally, strategic land acquisition and protection. And that is all around serving our growing community by acquiring high-quality natural resources and recreational land near protected property, greenways, and underserved areas. So that's a lot of information. I think we're halfway through here, but just wanted to present those kind of initial mission, vision, values, strategic and initiatives. And then under that we're not going through today is like all of these really dozens or hundreds of projects, all of the individual things that really the park system will be doing that, but it's informed by and supported by mission, vision, values, and strategic initiatives.
I think one thing to add to this too that we came up that we believed in out of the conversations is Ottawa County Parks and Recreation is already seen as a leader and already has so much foundational health out of which to leverage the continuation of that, not just for our county, but for our region and for our state. I have family in Chicago, and they come up to visit us. Where do they want to go? They want to the parks. They want to the beach. They want to Kirk Park. They want to visit. They want to go on the trails because they don't have those there. So all of what's happened is leveraging the foundation you already have, and these really aren't different missions, not different values, it's not different vision. It's just a different iteration of that for the current day. And imagine a world where these projects and these values and these initiatives increase the quality of what we already have. Imagine a world where for my kids as they grow up, what we have now is only increased in its quality, increase in its opportunity, increase in its accessibility. Like it's already there, but imagine a world where it keeps being there. For me, when we go through these, that's what excites me. If you see those, you can imagine these things happening even to a fuller degree. That to me is, I think, what brought us excitement in going through this. You're already aligned, you're already the foundation. This now propels you even further and faster into a more strategic future to get there in more strategic ways. So it was great. Over to you for discussion and questions.
So I don't, is this the wrong way? That one works? Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll take public comments. We'll try to work through public comments, let folks have an opportunity to come up and provide comments either on the process or if they have any initial feedback on the proposed mission, vision, values, and initiatives. There also is on our website a link to provide responses on a survey, and the presentation, or at least the draft, is also on our website. So if you want to take some time and digest that, formalize some responses, please do so. We'll have that up for about a week or so. But welcome anybody, and that can include staff or commissioners, to make comments. And you can come up and speak into the microphone if you would like. And then what we'll try to do at the end is do a wrap up, and whether it's park staff or some of the Crow team, we'll talk about if there are any questions that seem to be kind of generalized, we'll try to answer those. And then the next step is we'll refine the actual plan document that then we'll send to the Parks Commission in August for approval. So I welcome anybody to come up, and when you do, please just state your name, and we'll go from there. Are there any comments? Anybody who wants to, besides Calvin?
This is for him.
Right. So I'm happy. Okay, please. So there were, can you repeat that? So the question was, are there any, and I'll just try to repeat it so the folks online can hear, are there any examples of projects that came up through this process? So, well, I think in part of what was exciting, just I'll say anecdotally, you know, some of the surprises to me through the process were the overwhelming support. So I think continued preservation and protection of our natural resources scored up in the 80s in our scientific survey. One of the things we tested was providing opportunities for school students to engage with the outdoors. 88% of people who participated in that survey supported that. So I think some of the things that we have talked about and we do already, really, we tested and found it was overwhelmingly supported. You know, I think one of them that folks will laugh about is modern restrooms. So, you know, typically we have restrooms. I think we have a couple modern restrooms. We have a few more we're working on right now, but typically they've been pit toilets. And, you know, the feedback we received is looking at continuing to update those and upgrade those where appropriate. So staff, and help me out with any other of the themes. Yeah, and continuing really to focus on Go ahead.
So I'm just going to the mic just so the
Introduce
people.
yourself.
I'm Aaron Bodbile-Mast. I'm park planner with Ottawa County Parks. So people at home can hear me when we're dialoguing. So for me, and I've said, and this is a couple examples, why we have the vision is to create a legacy of expansive, accessible, and biodiverse natural communities for all to enjoy. So why we've been building towards that with the Grand River Greenway, for example, we're not there yet. We don't really have an expansive experience, right? So, and a good example of what we want to continue to do and do on that scale would be Ottawa Sands. So that's expansive. It's in the middle of 2,400 acres of connected public land. It's and like dozens of miles of hiking trails, biking trails, accessible biking trails along. We have. That's one of the things that's part of the change in the shift there is this is going to make that area that was previously, including parks commissioners that couldn't walk in there right now, there or walk around the really scenic mining lake. Biodiversity, we're creating biodiversity in an area that didn't have it. And that's a huge part of that project. So that's an example of a project that we're going to do and try to do more of at a scale that is maybe a little scaled up. Another example is we're at the Bass River State Recreation Area, we're working to doing one of the segments of the Item Explorers Trail there. Again, that's another 2,000 acre space of connected parks that is not really accessible to all. And we don't have the biodiversity part of there, but it will be expansive and accessible in a way it hasn't been before. So those are two examples. And as we connect different things with the Greenway, we can do that and look at how we can do that more. So that's as an example of kind of the projects I would say.
Yeah, no shutting down of projects. There was no, we don't like this project. It's I think overwhelmingly it was, we like this specific project, we want more of that. So it's a scaling across everything, scaling really biodiverse natural resources in the forest, scaling a more modern playgrounds that we really like that one. Now we want more of those, more accessibility, more like everything you have now, but more of it and expanding. So obviously there's resources that need to be allocated for those things, which will be, another challenge to work through. But it's honestly some blocking and tackling basic things. The restroom thing is not I wouldn't even really call it anecdotal, like hundreds of comments about restrooms, like very basic things, which the good news of that is that's achievable. That's something you can address. That's not a pie in the sky thing. And it really does make a difference of for many people, for families, if they're going to go to the parks that day or not. So that was a big kind of lesson.
Well, I think if we look at this, so this is our first strategic plan. So we've had incredible planning documents. The commissioners, when they formed in 87, I think the first rec plan was in 89. They did a natural features inventory across the whole county and really developed the land acquisition strategies. So we've had incredible planning and this incredible vision. One of the things, though, that we talked about as we were preparing for this is we've kind of grown to now. And Ottawa County still is the fastest growing county in the state of Michigan. And we saw this huge spike in increased usage in the park. And if you drive around any road today, almost, you're probably likely to see a new house going up. And so then the question becomes, so we've grown to here, where are we in 30 years? We have these incredible natural resources, what we think are some of the best parks in the Midwest. We know some of them are globally significant natural resources just to our native environment. So how do we continue to protect those so in 30 or 50 years, when our kids are being the stewards, they're still the high quality that everybody appreciates today. So I think how do we continue to do that work and expand on it? Some of the questions we ask and the feedback we got, it was intentional that we ask about being a leader. So, that might be with regional trail systems, where are the gaps? And, some communities have done amazing jobs with building trails, and we've involved in multiple regional trail segments, but where are those gaps and how do we connect them and then engage the public with those? So, good question. Other questions? Mhm. Well, so we get excited. So Ottawa Sands, 350 acres, and Aaron mentioned it as part of over 2,000 acres of coastal dunes. But it's this old sand mine. And when we acquired it, although it had been stabilized, it hadn't been necessarily reclaimed. And a lot of it wasn't great environmentally sound ecosystems. There was a serenity and an experience there that people fell in love with when you go and visit the park. So through the master planning process, we identified how to protect those experiences, but then really look at improving the ecosystems or the ecology of the site. So if we build out the master plan, over 65% of the site will have some sort of either restoration or enhancements done throughout that process. And then less than 8% of the entire site will be developed. We get really excited about talking about some of the infrastructure and facilities that are there because they're really unique. But really, we focused on making it accessible for the public, providing opportunities for them to get in, opportunities to have these unique experiences, and then really improving the ecology of the site. Because it's part of a bigger Grand River Greenway that we see. So I think that's our goal in a lot of cases with a lot of our parks. So I don't know the number of acres that are developed versus natural in our park system, but that would be yeah. So yeah. And I think, early on, as I looked at some of John Schultz's notes, and it really was about protecting the land, but then balancing and providing access for the public to experience those lands. So, we do focus on the highest quality natural areas, and we always will, and try to then look at how we protect those for generations to come. But it's also about providing the opportunities for the public to get in and experience them. And that's what was, we heard resoundingly, continue to do that. I think some accessible trails, some lighted trails to provide people an opportunity to do that, especially when it gets dark here in West Michigan. So, other questions?
Hi, my name is Linda Barman. I'm from Holland. I have been in most of the trails that are accessible to a person like me. And it's all just great. I've been on other trails in other counties and other states, and Ottawa County is the best. I'm just wondering if there is a certain place online that you have a list of all the projects that you're working on, and which parks you're working on, how much money is going, maybe I don't know what kind of information you would, but I just wonder about that because I have questions about a lot of parks, and I don't want to waste our time here
No.
with specific questions, but I'm just wondering if you have a list of, or a graph or a spreadsheet.
So our website has probably everything. Now, whether or not you can find it easily, that might be another question. But we have a monthly Parks Commission meeting. We just can't, it would be next week, but we aren't going to hold one next week. But a lot of those projects and those activities are talked about at those meetings, and we have a monthly packet that then gets posted online. Kurt, I'm going to ask you to come up and talk about the rec plan and the whole process that goes into planning that and prioritizing all the projects, because all of that's online as well, and we can direct people to that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you go to the website and you go to our current park and recreation plan, now that one's was done in 2021, and it's a 5-year plan. But in there is we call it a capital improvement schedule, which lists every project, what year, and how much we think we're going to spend on it. Now, that's a good segue because the strategic plan sets us up for our next park and recreation plan, which we'll be working on through the next year. That will again define what projects we think are most important and the budgets for them for the next 5 years. So yeah, we're going to do another planning process next year. We'll make it known for people to do that. But the strategic plan is kind of this overarching thing that will help us determine what projects are the most important for the next 5 years, and probably even more than that. If we're looking to our next millage, and that millage, if we go for renewal like normal, would be 10 years. So we would actually be looking at what projects we want to do over the next 10-year time frame. And I should mention too, because we haven't really talked about so much, some of the other things that came out of that, they're in the strategic initiatives, our conservation and land stewardship kind of efforts. We're going to also do a plan for that, right, based on the strategic initiatives. So what are we going to focus on for those kind of things, and also for our education, programming, and community outreach? That will also be under this broad strategic plan. So all of that probably is happening next year, so that when the millage comes, we can really tell people this is exactly what we hope to do. So, but if you can't find it on the website, I can help you come in. I can show you it. I could send you just the chart if you want, just a PDF of the chart so you can see it.
And then every month we have updates on the various projects, construction projects.
That's true too.
And all of our divisions have monthly reports that include our programs as well as our construction, our operations activities.
Right. I will say too, the rec plan, if you go to the very back in the appendix, it has a list of every project we've ever thought of, which is hundreds of them. But you might go through there and say, yeah, that one really sounds good. But there's only limited resources, so we pick the ones that are the best. But and you can read in there too, plug the whole plan, right? In that plan is every master plan for every park. And if you read the thing about the master plan, it will say what we would hope to do in there in the future. Some of them are short term, many of them are long term, but all of that's in there. So
just quick to add on that, as to look back as we think about going forward, we'll have in the strategic plan final numbers on our past investment. So as of this year, it looks like it'll be $100 million in capital to acquire and develop the land and restore land, which about 40 million came from millage or county funds, and 60 million was leveraged in some other way. So that's good news. That's not going to be easy to maintain in the future, but for every dollar of millage dollars that's been invested, 1.5 has been leveraged, right? So the millage has really done a lot, and it's important. I think what we know is that as our last fiscal year, almost half the visitors were from outside the county. So when we're not just get land for us, we're giving land for the whole state, and especially the region. Another thing I'll mention about that from the community benefits is we know that it's 24 million in tourism dollars a year that we generate, which would be about 5% of the total tourism dollars that is generated by Ottawa County. So it has a, that those investments, have an impact, annual impact on it, and that really benefits not just the quality of life, but the economic quality of life too. Oh yes, well, we know from the benefit study that the living near a park also increases your property values. This is kind of a well-known phenomenon, but we looked at it specifically here on parks that are mature parks. It doesn't necessarily work for just open space, but if you live like near Hager Park or Paw Paw Park or park like that, in those areas it was a $41 million increase in property value. So again, the investment, the tax dollars that are invested in it kind of are made back through tourism dollars that come to the county through quality of life and even through tax revenue. So.
Hi, Mark Van Putten, Ottawa County resident. The park system is one of the best things about living in Ottawa County, and my family, we've lived many places around the country, And we've hosted guests from many places, and it's an extraordinary system. And I'm very grateful to the leaders over the many years who have helped create and steward the system, and to the staff, some of whom I've come to know and I think are extraordinarily dedicated, committed professionals. So, this is one of the best things about Ottawa County. In the presentation, as you talked about the mission, vision, values, things like being a leader, connectivity, biodiversity, collaboration, there's an implication, at least that I find there, that there are opportunities and you aspire to lead beyond the lands you own and manage. Obviously, the Greenway initiatives, but I'd be interested in anything that you sort of heard or thinking about. How can Ottawa County, while maintaining the quality of the lands that are actually owned as and managed as parks, what more, what else could be done to help motivate others to be leaders, to enhance regional collaboration, to increase connectivity? And when I see that, I think of that as sort of an ecological term of art. And I don't think you only meant it in that way, but I think you partially meant it that way. So anyway, I'm just interested in the vision of leadership and collaboration beyond owning and managing as well as you do the lands you own.
Thank you, Mark. So it was very purposeful and intentional to include being a leader, right, in the collaboration. And so we've always, I think in a lot of cases, we're a resource for the community to come and find us out. And a lot of times we lead by example. Our focus really is internally and managing our own land. So part of those key phrases were then being intentional about taking the initiative to be the leader. Maybe we don't have to preserve the land, but we help work with the Land Conservancy of West Michigan for conservation easements. Maybe we look at landscape level management of some of our most sensitive natural areas, and we can take a lead role in that in the future. The same with trails and the connectivity. We don't necessarily have to own or build or operate or manage the trail system, but maybe we can help facilitate those conversations and connect those gaps. As a lead agency in the community, saying, okay, this is a priority, how can we come together and look at where those gaps are? We know we've got great greenways. The Idaho Explorers Trail will run from, Lake Michigan into Grand Rapids, but then how do they connect in with the Lakeshore Trail and make it down to Holland State Park or to our other parks? So really looking at closing those gaps and then helping people, intentionally facilitating the connection. So, educating the public, creating the stewards in the future of these natural resources. So, that will be our conversations in the future. How do we do that? What types of projects or, initiatives that will help us lead? So being a resource, we have probably one of the best Parks and Rec plans that I've seen. It's incredible. And, being a resource for other communities as they go through that process. That way, we're providing assistance and help to them, but it also builds on our knowledge and data too, and then helps, educate them in the components of what could be in a rec plan. And it might be, we could have sample contract language to help with controlling or managing invasive species, right, for landscapers, and provide those to our local jurisdictions, or helping with conservation language, looking at goals for protection of lands. That's, again, we're the fastest. And I look at some of those early rec plans. The reason they passed the millage in '96 was because they were worried about overdevelopment in '96. And here we are, 30 years later, and we're still having that same in Ottawa County. And I think a lot of it is the natural resources in the parks. And so how do we continue to protect those for the community? Thanks, Mark. So we have any commissioners who are with us today? Anybody or anybody from the foundation? Anybody else like to make comments, or any of our strategic advisory groups? Other questions? Nothing? All right. So again, we have the drafts are online, and we have a link to survey. So if you're online and would like to make comments, please find that link. Or if you're with us today, feel free to do that. And if people would like to assistance in finding additional information on our website, and I always encourage folks, we're the second to last Wednesday of the month. In our packets, we talk about a lot of that stuff that goes on every month at our Parks Commission meetings. So, thanks, everybody. And, thank you to Crow and the team. I think one of the testaments is, right, we had incredible community engagement, and they did an amazing job with facilitating that and gathering, collecting, and organizing that data. So thank you to them.
We like your parks too. We go to, and I came earlier today it's just beautiful here. We have a team member who grew up in Northern California, and she lives in Chicago now, and had never been to Lake Michigan. She came a few days earlier just because she's like, she's from Northern California. She's like, I've never been to a place this beautiful before. So just what you have, and you know it. We don't have to tell you that you know what gem you have, but it's just incredible. So we love it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.